let's do a little bit of world building. So I want to make a project where I come up with an entire world. And I thought I'd share it with you guys. That way, you know, it'll be kind of secondary content to just my overall advice content and my speed paints. So I have like multi vectors to kind of worry about or try to make, again, with the strategy of consistency. I'm also working on like own independent stuff here and there, so it's be cool to show that stuff as well. But let's do some world building. First thing I want to do is chart out what I'm aiming to make happen right now. So the first thing I want to do is start to create essentially like a religion, like a world that has this sort of belief system. And the second thing that I want to kind of do is to tie it in with kind of sci-fi themes, you know, and kind of go from there. So let's brainstorm a little bit. It would be really interesting to, combine these two ideas together. What is like religious and sci-fi at the same time? And one thing that I like is still the ideas of like celestial bodies, like moons and planets and, foreign objects in space being things that matter a lot to these people, and that there is some sort of deity that might reside in them. So let's begin there. And in this world, I already have some ideas of the kinds of stuff that these people do, which is essentially they're hunters. And the idea around this is that they are hunting and fishing for things on these planets. And I would like for them to kind of preside on a planet that might be orbiting like a gas giant. So you have your gas giant, and then it might be like a moon or a satellite alongside that. And I also like the rings of Saturn or something like this. Right now, there is no specific universe that I'm putting them in, and this could change. Maybe I want it to be in a far future version of our universe, or a fantasy one. But anyway, let's do some drawing. And I'm going to shrink this because I don't want this to be the main focus. It's really simple. And what I'm going to try to attempt here as I'm building this world is, simply put, I'm just going to try to come up with fascinating concepts. And I am going to use a brush that does a little bit more forgiving. I don't think I want any of the flow, but definitely want it to be aggressive too. I don't want it to be super opaque. And maybe what we do, I'll put some of this, but we'll just make this also pretty aggressive. Yeah, I think 75 is fine. So let's do 75, 50. Let's try that. Cool. And then I'll just do this triangle brush to build worlds with a K. Okay. All right. This should suffice for my needs. So one thing that I want to do is make them look clearly sci-fi. I want them to feel like these people are maybe not occultists. I really love occultist vibes, but honestly, it might be played out. Here, let me get some more range and values here. But it is always a good place to start. And just like with any kind of religion, you can always have the fanatics. And so maybe there's some sort of connection to the rings, right? So maybe the rings resemble like different heavens. And so this person or this character or this religious figure is caught up in that, whatever that might be. Shrink this down. So I actually want to not just conceptualize these designs independently. I want to like do it as a bit of an ensemble. and kind of fill up this page to the best of my ability in the next 30 or 40 minutes. Just to, oh, this is super low resolution. Here, let me backtrack. Let me do this instead. 5,000 by 3,000. That should be okay. Maybe not. Let's go a little bit bigger. We're in Photoshop. We are not in Procreate, which Procreate is very limited in the amount of space you can, or the amount of size you can have in your canvas. So perhaps the rings will be represented in these little eye holes. Maybe there's something to that. And again, I want to put them on like in a world where breathing and survival. Oh shoot, this might be a bit of annoyance. Let me do this, and then okay, just bring this out to the middle so when I flip it stays. I'll move it later. Yeah, and so like these people need to survive off of maybe whatever they call the hunt, whatever they fish for in these planets, because they're like on the verge of looking for a special essence that might keep them living for longer and longer. And maybe the essence is pure and they do have some evidence of finding it. But in the meantime, they are pretty much, you know, only able to survive with whatever circumstances they have available to them. And maybe this figure is ordaining or baptizing this essence that might have been found, this artifact, right? And again, I'm focusing almost entirely on building the world here. So I'm not going to be too convinced on trying to make this image super beautiful, but I am not going to make it unappealing at the same time. And so what we can do here is we can create maybe some sort of like tank that gives some essence of life and some essence of survival to this being. And they have it on, they're wearing it at all times. They have it available to them at any given moment. But over time, they will absolutely need more. And so this figure is trying to basically, or this priestess, maybe I'm going to call him a priest, is trying to ordain the next layer of essence. I like this idea of exposed arms, but perhaps like the atmosphere is unbreathable, but you know, you can definitely have your limbs and body parts exposed. But maybe I want to try to make this like a very brutal environment. But as a consequence, like their arms are like freezing because the outer air is incredibly cold. But as part of the ritual and as part of like sacrifice, they will put their hands on this. Ooh, that's kind of metal, dude. Hold on. I got some ideas now. See, this is a cool thing about trying to build worlds. So yeah, so check this out. So they're going to be putting their hands on this, and it's not just one. And it's like, here are previous priests and priestesses that left their hands basically to shatter off. They like rip their own arms off, and maybe he has like this band that is prepared to do such. And so it's just a matter of time, and then this guy is going to sacrifice his limbs as well. Maybe there's like some inscription that allows for this to be taken. And the goal is that perhaps there's no real meaningful purpose to do this outside of just some religious aspect, but maybe we can think of some utility of like maybe what happens is like the human flesh, or like not the human flesh, but the flesh of this artifact or of this essence that they have captured feeds off of the living tissue that might be frozen. And as a result, can create these vials that get filled with this essence that they then could pass out to the tribe. And again, this is all sci-fi, so I want to kind of make this somewhat futuristic, create like tubes, piping. It's kind of a mix of like I don't know what's the best describing aesthetic of this type of like grunge futurism. I don't know what I'm trying to think of an example that's really hitting my mind, but the only closest one would be like diesel punk, but there's not like they're not driving like Mad Max cars or anything. So I don't know. Yeah, I gotta think about this more. But I like this like they are over engineered and it's just chunky and just kind of raw, but they're taking the contrast is that they are using like religion and cultural belief systems to manufacture their technology. It's incredibly theist, you know? But yeah, these are like previous priestesses. Yeah, and for this video, I'm probably going to just stay. I'm going to do one thing at a time. Actually, now that I think about it, and I'll just come back to this page over and over and keep adding more and more and more and more, and just I'll start writing stuff down and I'll put it somewhere, archive it as I'm building this world out. So I do want to kind of do something with this world that I'm creating, slowly but surely. And it just takes one person at a time. They can't do it multiple people because the life expectancy of these people aren't long. And whenever they get any aspect of this artifact, a small morsel, whatever this is from the hunt, which I have some ideas of what that is, and I'll kind of expand on that as I get more and more deeper with this. But the goal here is that only one person at a time, and it only takes one. And as a result, it can last millennia, perhaps, maybe some ridiculous amount of time. So these arms are like ancient, hundreds of years old, these other arms. And then maybe like there's one that's just shattered. Ooh, that's an interesting idea. Maybe not shattered, but it's like you could see some that are getting shorter. And maybe the idea too is that he's using both. Maybe you don't have to use both. One is enough. But he's using two to kind of create a larger supply, like an infinite supply. And ooh, you know what else would be freaking badass? Is that he's like on like some sort of pedestal, but this like goes down for like miles, maybe. Or like this is one of many. Maybe this isn't the only one. But he's like up here after like climbing a fleet of stairs to get to this. You know what I mean? And this will slowly deliver these vials down below to the people who are getting their life essence so they can survive and live a little bit longer in this incredibly aggressive environment. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's not just that the environment is such a treacherous thing. Like, so for instance, you know, there's all these talks about us as a species to try to like terraform planets like Mars, but the pragmatism of that is incredibly challenging, and it might take something even beyond like our lifetime. We won't even see a glimpse of that. It could take dozens of lifetimes before we even get close to something that makes perfect sense. Because of just how aggressive the environment is, and what it means to do all that, and the money and effort to even attempt it is just not there, let alone the technology to even achieve it. And so, what if these people are the kinds of people that they ventured off and traveled, and their ancestors felt like, survived on this planet. They maybe were like early examples of our species, our humanity, similar, right? But over millennia, just realized terraforming is just not in the cards. So evolution is a better approach, perhaps. And evolution still takes forever. And so as they're waiting for their bodies to evolve, part of the strategy that they're doing is to use creatures and beings and what they may call gods and angels of the parts of the universe that are attached to, basically taking their blood to thrive and survive. It gives them like this extra ability to survive under these conditions. Like it might not let them freeze over, right? It might give them the warmth to survive a little bit longer for like 10 years. It might give them the ability to not have to eat or find nutrients for the same amount of time, right? Like they can just get this essence, and as long as they infuse it, kind of like blood infusion, they can essentially live forever, as long as they get this stuff, or at least they can survive a lot longer. Oh, it's my timer to get out of here. You know what I mean? And I like that. I think that's pretty wicked. But I'm going to stop here. I'm going to marinate on this idea. I'm going to come back to it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put this over here and call this the priests. The priest. Oh my god, it's the writing here. I saved this brush so I can use a more effective writing brush. Let's do this. Priest. Files. Rituals. I'm going to leave that for myself. And I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to try to do several more ideas bouncing off of this. But I'm going to stop here for episode 1 of World Building. Hope you guys enjoy it.